Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 602. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Before I want to talk movies, though, I want to talk everyone's favorite passion, especially mine, NFL football.
Okay.
Did you guys hear?
I didn't know you're a Swiftie.
Swiftie, yeah. Travis Kelce. He's great. He's going to get all the awards and all the bowls. Did you guys hear about the game that was streamed to Disney Plus?
No.
With the Toy Story skin on it?
Toy Story skin? What does that even mean? All
right. So today, the Jaguars and the Falcons played their game in London at Wembley Stadium, which is like local my time was a 9:30 a.m. game. So it's early. And Disney set up this deal where they live streamed the game to Disney Plus. However, it looked like it was being played in Andy's bedroom from Toy Story. And all the players were like CG, like bobbleheads running around this field. And there's like Toy Story characters in the stands watching the football game. So like somehow they're doing live motion capture of this game. And then you could watch on Disney Plus like you're watching toys playing it.
What that is?
This looks pretty sweet.
That is wild. I'm pulling it up.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
It is the most pleasant football experience I've ever had. Because one, there's no commercials. Like, so every time there was an ad break, they just would play trivia, like Toy Story trivia on the screen. I guess there was occasional ads for ESPN themselves because, you know, Disney, ESPN, they're all one company. But
what do they do during the downtime between plays?
So during the downtime between plays, like the commentators would be talking, or they would cut to like pre-canned animation of like Toy Story characters like cheering or doing something like that. The halftime show was Duke Kaboom, who did like a trick for the halftime. And like the commentators were great about explaining football. They would be like, oh, that's an offsides penalty. Offsides means, you know, when a player crosses the scrimmage line before the ball is snapped. And like,
so
like
it wasn't the same commentators as like the live game.
No. These were special commentators for the game. And like, you know, because they would reference the Toy Story characters. Megan was watching it and she was like, I really like that they're explaining football right now. So I will watch all games, future NFL games, if it's shown through a Toy Story lens, because it was an incredibly pleasant watch experience. Like
my kids
totally got
into
it too.
That.
Oh yeah, it was super fun. And I don't know the technology they use, but I was pretty impressive that they're using what seemed to be like real time motion capture or something along those lines.
Interesting. Yeah, would it be that, or because I know they already have like some kind of tags in the uniforms that keep precise locations on every player as they play. But that wouldn't determine like which direction they're facing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or like if they're
juking
or something like that.
Right. I wonder if they're just live skinning the frames.
That they could
pretty
be
wild.
Yeah. It was, and there was hardly any technology issues. Like
I bet
it was
you just had
good
2 sensors in the helmet, one in the front of the helmet, one in the back of the helmet. That does most of the work.
Yeah, but I mean, like it definitely showed, unless they got the animations good enough to be like, okay, we know what direction they're running, so that we can make good running animation. Like it felt, the players felt more dynamic than just like which direction are they facing and which direction are they going.
When they tackled each other, did they actually like wrap arms around and like pull somebody down, or was it just like 2 guys bumping into each other and then it's like, oh, one's down?
It was a little bit more bumping. So like the figures themselves weren't very articulated. They kind of look like bobbleheads running around. You probably saw in the videos. Yes.
I would bet it's like little stock animations for like all the different movements that are detected by the sensors. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Having not watched it.
There
cool.
There are some side by sides on Twitter I saw of like the Toy Story broadcast and the live broadcast, and it was pretty close. So,
what do you think the point of this is? To do it?
Yeah,
to train the next generation of football fans.
Right. I think it's to reach young fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a pipeline.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, I don't know. We live in a capitalist society, James.
Sure. No, I get it. I don't necessarily have like a big problem with it. I don't know. It's maybe the second most violent sport on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
What?
There's no way
UFC?
Galen's playing it. He's not playing football.
Sure.
So if he wants to watch it, that's fine. Yeah, UFC. I mean, boxing's pretty violent too.
That's true.
You mean the sport where they punch each other?
Yes. But you're right. I think of the major sports, it's either football or hockey. It seems like people get injured more often in football than they do hockey.
Yeah. I mean, I think hockey definitely has its violent moments, but the whole point of it is not to smash into each other. Now, people do smash into each other while playing hockey, but you don't win by smashing into people, typically.
You're not stopping the play by smashing into people.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well,
Well,
I see what you're saying.
you could.
No, but I mean, but once the puck is live, it's live. Like football, once the ball's dead, play stops.
Sure.
So you can smash into someone, but there's still a live puck floating around that ice.
Yeah. But you know, whatever people want to do, I guess I'm okay with.
I thought it was cool and it was pleasant. So it was a nice way to spend my Sunday morning. Yeah.
Do you think kids are more likely to watch it with, the skin on it versus the actual game?
I think younger kids are more likely to watch it with the Toy Story skin to it. I would imagine like 9, 10, 11-year-olds probably want to see the actual game with players.
It's still like a 3.5 hour affair, right? 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah, right, because they're not trimming anything. Like it's still more or less a live broadcast.
Yeah. I don't know about that. This does have parallels to one of the movies we're going to talk about tonight too.
Ooh,
which I find interesting. Specifically with Bottoms and what we're talking about right now, very similar. That's a joke. Creator has comparisons. We'll talk about it. Anything else before we jump into housekeeping?
No.
All right. I'm also curious how much they paid. Like who paid who? Disney paid the NFL to do this, or the NFL paid them to do it, or seems or they just called it even and they both chipped in?
ESPN owns the rights to showcase it, so I don't think they had to pay anyone.
You don't think they had to?
Right. Because ESPN is Disney.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, does ESPN just have exclusive rights to broadcast however they want, or is their contract to like you could do a live broadcast on Sunday mornings of the Wembley game, and then they have to go to NFL and be like, okay, so we want to do this Toy Story thing with it.
I bet they own exclusive broadcasting rights.
Okay, interesting.
Would be
in
my
any
guess.
form.
Yeah.
And like NFL doesn't have some control over what you can show, because like in this case there was no there wasn't the uniforms, wasn't the stadium. Like if you did not know that this was actual NFL teams, besides like they had like their logos on the bottom of the screen, nothing about this showed NFL.
Right.
I just don't know like how much NFL protects their brand.
I guarantee you there's going to be like a Wall Street Journal article about this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
I will read that.
All right. Let's jump into housekeeping for this week. Don't forget there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out. youtube.com/@Cinereelists. Also, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Leave us an Apple Podcast review. 5 stars only. We'd appreciate that. Or send us an email to heyguys@Cinereelists.com. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, a list, any of those kinds of things. We appreciate getting email, and we'll talk about on a future episode of the podcast. You guys ready to jump into our double feature for this week of The Creator and Bottoms?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's do it. Starting with The Creator, which is in theaters now. We're going to get into it right after this clip.
She can stop it?
She's not ready yet. The range of her powers are still growing. But if we can get her up there, maybe she can destroy it.
How could anyone survive that?
She won't. But it will turn the tide of the war.
Does she even know what she's been created for?
彼女何も知らない.
That was The Creator, a 2023 American science fiction film directed by Garth Edwards, who co-wrote the screenplay with Chris Weitz. This film stars John David Washington, Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Sturgill Simpson, Allison Janney, amongst others. And the official IMDb plot synopsis is: against the backdrop of a war between humans and robots with artificial intelligence, a former soldier finds the secret weapon, a robot in the form of a young child. What did you guys think of The Creator?
I really want to hear what Zach thinks of this movie.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I
first, I thought they chickened out with the name because they maybe say The Creator once in the movie and they say Naimata like a million times.
Should this movie have been called Nimrata instead, do you think?
Nimrata?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, we should say there will be a spoiler-free version of this review, which is what you're listening to right now. And we're also going to record a spoiler version as well. So we will let you know when we make that transition and where to listen. So for right now, you're in the safe zone, the spoiler-free zone.
Yeah. Okay, so my basic thoughts. First of all, I'll talk about the presentation. This movie has a lot of world building and a ton of CGI. And I will say it is one of the few movies that I've seen that has relatively flawless CGI throughout. So there's an incredible amount of computer graphics. And for the most part, they are all very, very, very well done. It's very impressive to see it so artfully enmeshed in the movie.
So the thing that is a parallel to what we've been talking about with the NFL is I read an article with the special effects supervisor on this and the director. And from the article, the vast majority of moving objects like people and stuff like that on the screen, they shot with real people without knowing as they shot it who was going to be a robot, who was going to be a simulant, and who was going to be human. So they like put guys in helmets and stuff like that, and they just shot it, and then as in editing, they decided who gets the circle in the back of their neck. And when they wrote the script, they wrote everybody essentially the same. Like they're all humans according to the script. And then they made choices in the edit on who was going to be simulant and who was going to be now, there are specific people that were decided in advance, but if you see people in the background or some of the supporting characters, some of those people they changed on the fly because there was no script reason why they had to be one or the other type of thing.
And I think it's important to point out that there's no like secret simulants. This isn't the idea of our AI robots replacing humans. It's very clear who's a human, who is a simulant that is human appearing, but obviously has machinery in them. And then who is just a straight up robot who may have a personality, but it's, just has mechanical arms and legs. Yeah.
But I think that's probably why it looked so amazing is like when the robots are running through the forest, it's a dude with his head replaced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the body was filmed running through the forest and moving leaves out of the way and stuff like that. That's also how the movie cost $80 million because it looks like 200 million, if not more.
When I read I read under 100. I was like, really? That's all they spent? That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, Zach.
And it takes place, like 40 years in the future. And so it has all this tech There's like some of it's aged by that point, and so there's a lot of world building. I don't know if it's all 100% like sensical. As far as the actual storyline and plot, I did enjoy all the acting. I thought the performances were good. The actual plot and themes and all that, I do kind of feel are maybe lacking. I think they're pretty shallow, and if you pull on any thread, I feel like it falls apart almost immediately. There's so many plot elements that don't make sense or don't add up, and yeah, so I think those aren't as strong, unless if you enjoy it on a surface level. I'm along for the ride and it's fun. It's just if you want to critique it, it's very critiquable, I think. But I thought I saw it in IMAX. It was fun to watch, visually stunning. Some interesting ideas in there. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I agree with a lot what Zach had to say. My first two notes are great world building and flawless CGI. And I really liked the world that this movie built. I want to talk about it a little bit in spoilers because I do think you can pick things of it apart. I think there's one element, a war-causing element, we could say, that I thought was didn't seem to make sense when you look into it. But I thought the idea of like how AI technology robots were incorporated into society and how the world sort of took different stances on being pro versus con on AI technology all made sense and was presented to me in a way that I could follow. And yeah, CG looked incredible. Can't complain there. There's a lot of ideas in this movie, and I wish the movie had dived into them more. And it gave me, like you said, a base storyline of this human and this child simulant traveling together, and what are the implications of AI, but it really didn't dive into like how can this change the world, and are AI people or not, and like what is a soul or humanity. Like I feel like it presented these ideas but never really wanted to go for them. Not that I wanted like a super philosophical movie. I was fine with this kind of being an action sci-fi movie, but I just kept thinking of Children of Men as I was watching this, and how Children of Men was able to balance the action sci-fi world building with also the dramatic ideas. And this movie could do one of those things and could not pull off the other. There are also so many moments of characters just making what I thought were dumb decisions that took me out of it. And it was maybe like because Garth Edwards wanted a cool shot or wanted to move the story along. But we can talk about these in spoilers, but there's just multiple times I was watching this movie like, why are they doing that? Like, that does not make any sense. Not beyond a suspension of disbelief sense. Like, just like that's just a stupid decision to make. And yeah. I just felt like this movie was rushing. Like it had these key moments it wanted to get to, and would just sort of, how do we quickly move to the next moment? And I think maybe that's where some of those ideas were lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think I generally agree with both you guys on what you liked about it and what you didn't like about it. Like, it's visually perfect for what it's aiming for, which is like a hyper realistic look at like a relatively near future, but with tech that just doesn't exist in the modern world, which he's really good at. Like if you watch Rogue One, Gareth Edwards' Star Wars movie, that movie makes Star Wars look far more real than any of the other Star Wars movies. The other Star Wars movies kind of exist in this fantasy world, and there's certainly some of that built into Rogue One. But the battle on the tropical planet in Rogue One is the most warlike Star Wars has ever looked, for sure. Maybe it's not great for like high adventure, but the presentation is very specific when he does it. What were you going to ask?
Did the final battle of this movie remind you, the final land battle of this movie, did that remind you of that Rogue One battle also, kind of in the beach forest? Just in presentation?
I don't know if it reminded me like specifically, just that I got the same vibe from I think he presents these types of things very similarly for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I did like about this movie is that it is pretty deadly serious about what it is. You know what I mean? Like, for better or for worse, it's like we're making a serious movie here that has all kinds of robots and replicants and humans doing weird things, but we're going to take it 100% serious and not be ashamed of that at all. It makes for like some of the smaller funny moments, like with the running bomb type stuff, where it's a little Looney Tunes, but also has some gravity to it. I think it highlighted the occasional moments where the silliness ramped up a little bit. And I enjoyed that. I agree that the story is like super basic for the most part. It's like, it's a very surface level movie. There's a couple times where I got the feeling like an hour in that like they're just beating around the bush with what they were trying to say. And then they just had a character say a line that I'm sure we'll talk about in spoilers, where I was like, okay, there they go. They just laid it out for us. If you didn't understand what they were getting at yet, they're just going to have this guy say it outright. And I kind of enjoyed that and wished they had done that more with like other angles that I feel were in the movie, like from a this is what we're trying to say perspective. But I feel like they left those out in the wilderness and they just focused on the one, which we'll get to in spoilers, I'm sure. But overall, I enjoyed it, but I did feel like I wanted more than just like pretty visuals and a storyline that has been done before over and over and over and over again, I would say. Like this movie is like a lot of sci-fi. It's like a little bit of Blade Runner, a little bit of Avatar, a lot of District 9. I got strong District 9 vibes from this movie. Just substitute the aliens with robots, I would say. Not from a plot perspective, but from like a feeling like you're in a world perspective. But overall, what's on the screen, $80 million is freaking amazing. I mean,
he's always been good with a budget.
Yeah. It kind of puts other big budget sci-fi movies to absolute shame to know that like that can be done with less than half of what they're doing it with.
Yeah. I just spent the whole time in the theater, like especially after like that first hour of like, what else do you have for me, movie, besides cool visuals and sci-fi action? And it just it never gave you that extra something else to really
some of the mysteries of the film. They remain mysteries a full 45 minutes after it's clear what they are. You know?
Yeah. There are a couple twists, I'm going to put in air quotes, which did not surprise me whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple twists that like came out of nowhere, and I don't fully understand what the justification is.
There were some that surprised me in that I thought they were going to go this more interesting way, and then they just went the most basic way they could. I was just like, oh, okay. Felt like you had an opportunity here to do something interesting, but instead you went with something that's already been done 50 times before.
James, I think you just took my biggest criticism and voiced it right there. It's just every time they can make the interesting choice. Yeah. Why not?
Right. Yeah. They went with something you've seen before.
Yeah.
I almost wish that they tried to do less, but also go deeper and then make this like the most epic trilogy ever, you know?
Yeah. That's probably a good non-spoiler question. Do you want more of this? Or is this kind of good enough?
I do.
You do.
I am interested by this world.
Okay.
I don't know if I want more savior storyline though.
Sure. Yeah. I think where the movie ends up, I don't really care. Where the movie ends up.
Like
I have headcanon for the movie that I think really makes it much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so like there's a big event that we learn in flashback at the beginning that kind of kicks off this whole war.
Mhm.
And then there's a throwaway line that like talks about this big event, which seemed to like it was a world changing thing. And I'm like, can we go back into that? Because that seems fascinating. Like,
Mhm.
like it seems like this whole war is over a big misunderstanding.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah. So I also really want to talk about the Nomad, the giant ship.
I liked it.
I-
I liked the blue light design was cool.
Yeah. Okay. We can talk more about that in spoilers.
I liked
But-
it. The only thing I didn't like is they said it was $1 trillion, and that seemed
Low.
like not very much money.
It's like a
Considering
Dr.
it was like
Evil
a
amount of
floating
money.
city.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I
okay,
just could never get a sense of how high it was. It looked like it's pretty low in the sky, but it's in orbit or something.
It was suborbital
mhm.
because when they were up, they were like at the what's the line between space and atmosphere?
Is there a line?
Yeah. There's an official line for like when you are outside the Earth's atmosphere. It's like the Menjova line or something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, it seems suborbital, but it's right just because it was so huge. It was hard to tell. Like, was it 5,000 feet in the air or was it 60,000 feet in the air? It just couldn't tell.
The exosphere.
Yeah, but there's like a line that you like. It's obviously the imaginary line, but it's
The outermost layer of the atmosphere.
yeah. So what's the line you cross when you go from the exosphere to space?
What is outside of Earth's atmosphere? Outer space,
No.
according to Google.
Okay,
I think you're asking the wrong question.
you can hop on Quora and find out what the answer is to this.
All right, I give up.
All right, we'll figure it out at some point. Maybe in spoilers we can talk about it.
Sure. Anything else to say about the creator? Do you recommend this to people? I kind of feel like
Carmen line.
What's it called?
Carmen line.
Yeah, the Menjova line, exactly. The Carmen line. I knew there was a line. I couldn't remember what it was called.
I feel like if you're like a sci-fi person or maybe a big budget person, big budget action type thing, I'd recommend this to you. But if you don't really care about those things, I don't know if there's much here for you. Like the story's so basic.
It's not the next great sci-fi movie I was hoping it would be.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what this movie reminded me of? There used to be a TV show in the 90s, and I don't remember the name of it.
The Outer Limits.
No.
Okay.
It had the guy
X-Files.
who was in Kung Fu. Do you remember that guy?
David Carradine.
It had David Carradine, and it was on Earth, and it was like aliens were like refugees on Earth, and they were treated as second-hand citizens. Do you remember that show?
Oh, yes. Just keep talking.
That's it.
Okay.
You're talking about Circle of Iron?
No.
It was a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. Are you sure it was David Carradine?
I'm not.
Okay. I just looked up David Carradine Alien show and nothing's popping up right away.
Okay.
Alien Nation?
Maybe it was Alien Nation. That's such a benign title.
What's the plot of Alien Nation?
The plot is, in the near future, a human cop and his alien partner fight crime and discrimination in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think it is Alien
that's
Nation.
okay. That sounds like it. Yes.
I'm looking at his skull tattoos, and it reminds me of that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
And what specifically about this reminded you?
Well, it's just like these aliens that live on Earth, and they're like kind of accepted, kind of not, and they're second-hand citizens, and it's like, what do we do with these people? And like all those kind of issues.
Okay. Yeah, I want to talk more about that part of the world in spoilers.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
All right. First, I want to know if you'd recommend this to someone to see, and two, what you letterbox rated it.
Well, James kind of asked that question already. would you recommend this movie to someone?
Yeah, and I said I would if I thought they'd like it, but if there's somebody who doesn't watch movies like this, there's nothing for them. The story doesn't, what's the word? Outpace the sci-fi-ness.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Cool. Well, before we get into spoilers, let's letterbox rate this out of 5 stars. What are you guys going to give the creator?
I'll give it 3 stars.
I'll go 3.5.
I am also a 3.5. So 1 3, 2 3.5s for the creator. If you'd like to hear spoiler chat for the creator and you're listening on a podcast app, just keep playing at the end of the podcast after the music. You'll hear us talk spoilers. If you're on YouTube watching this video and you'd like to jump to spoilers, just click the link in the description. Let's move on to Bottoms, which was recently released on video on demand. I believe it's in some theaters as well if you want to see it in a movie theater with other people. But yeah, well, we're going to get into it right after this clip.
I can't believe they're letting you guys start a fight club.
No, they're not. We are not.
What are you talking about? We're gonna do it. We're doing it.
PJ, I wasn't being serious.
Josie, did you see the way that Isabel and Brittany were looking at us? Also, you heard the announcements. Girls are terrified. It's perfect. They need this.
Okay, no, they need, like, mace, maybe. We can't do that, okay? We'd be misleading them.
Guys do that all the time, okay? That's the point of feminism.
That's not the point of feminism. You also don't care about feminism. Your favorite show is Entourage. You're missing the point. I don't really think I am. We don't know how to fight.
You guys probably fought girls in juvie.
No, we were lying about that, obviously.
About juvie?
Yeah, I mean,
Why
what?
would you lie to me?
You were the one who said we went to juvie. I just didn't correct you. Listen, self-defense is instinctual common sense. You try to punch me in the face, I stop it from happening. Whatever, I don't care. It's easy. Look, this is how we do this.
Okay, we start with Taekwondo, which I've got covered. And then you guys can move on to air punches.
That was Bottoms, a 2023 American satirical teen sex comedy directed by Emma Seligman, starring Rachel Sennott, Ayo Edebiri, Ruby Cruz, Havana Rose Louis, Kaja Gerber, Nicholas Galzentine, or something. I probably got that wrong. Miles Fowler, Dagmar Dominizik, and Marshawn Lynch, of all people.
Right, Marshawn Lynch.
The IMDb plot synopsis for Bottoms is 2 unpopular queer high school students start a fight club to have sex before graduation.
So I have an issue with calling this a sex comedy.
Okay.
In the sense, because that like invokes to me American Pie or movies like that.
Mhm.
And although this movie maybe has this setup of like, oh, we need to do X, Y, and Z to get laid before we go to college or whatever,
Mhm.
there's actually no sex in this movie.
There is.
There is?
Yeah.
Sure there is. Maybe there wasn't comedy made out of it, but
Okay.
there is.
There
Are you
is.
talking about the mom?
No, but there's that as well. But
Okay,
yeah.
no, I wasn't talking about that. To
One
me, it
of the-
recalls more like an 80s sex comedy.
Oh, right. There is. Okay, you're right. There is one moment, but I guess it's not presented in a comedic way,
Right.
like I would expect. But even like an 80s comedy like Revenge of the Nerds or Porky's, I think those also present sex in funny
Well,
situations.
When I think of a sex comedy, I think of like you have friends that all are just constantly thinking about sex.
Right,
And like
which
that's their
this is.
motivations for the
Yeah.
things that they do. And that's what this movie is.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably shades of sex comedies like Revenge of the Nerds and Ski Patrol, and like those. That 80s stuff is like, yeah, it's just a different style of sex comedy, I would say. That they've pretty much given up on making for the most part. Maybe those are like sexploitation movies.
Mhm.
In a weird way, maybe not as exploitative as like a Grindhouse style sexploitation movie, but all right. So Bottoms, you got 2 girls. They're in high school. Very what's the movie with Michael Cera and
Super bad
guy? Super bad. Very super bad-ish, I would say, in the premise. You got like these two kids who are relatively outcast in their high school, and they just want to get laid, basically. And in this scenario, it just happens to be two girls who are looking for other girls versus two guys who are looking for girls. So that's the setup for the movie. I'd say the tone in this one, as opposed to Superbad and like films like that, the tone in this one is like, this is not a normal reality high school. This is like some kind of weird heightened reality high school where every cliche is taken to the max from frame one, which I enjoyed a lot. Like the satirical nature of the movie really got to me in the best ways.
That's what I found most surprising was the heightened world that these what seemed like normal characters lived in. Like they were not heightened at all. But then like the school they go to, the teachers they have, the football players who are dressed in like full football pads and cleats the entire movie. You know, the and how they're treated as gods. Like, I'm sure you guys saw like the Touch of God poster behind the football players.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I really liked this heightened world that these girls existed in. This movie almost felt like a dark version of Barbie. In the sense it was hitting on a lot of the same themes of like patriarchy and how women feel in society and the danger they feel. I don't know. I just felt like this movie is like an odd companion to Barbie. Like if you liked Barbie and you want something with similar themes that are just going a little darker and weirder, you could definitely enjoy this movie.
I don't disagree with that. I think Barbie is probably a little safer than this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this movie is darker and weirder than Barbie. Like,
sure. Yeah. But I would say by like measures.
Yeah, by orders of magnitude. This is more like Heathers. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure.
You never finished that one. I don't know. How I know Heathers was made in late 80s, and it was obviously it's a black comedy, but like just watching Heathers and how it cavalierly handles the idea of school shootings in that time, like in a modern lens, it was just too weird for me. I just couldn't get into that. So
well, I was really surprised at how cavalierly this movie, like intentionally so, but talks about like sexual assault and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it really just makes them throwaway kind of jokes. And it's interesting because no other movie would touch it like that.
Right. I mean, this movie does get fairly serious at times in some of these conversations between these group of girls who are in this fight club. And then goes back to its weird heightened world.
I don't know. I would disagree. I don't think it ever really gets serious. It talks about serious things in a very casual way.
Okay.
That's how more I would frame it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found this movie to be very, very interesting. And like you said, the heightened world, the like the extreme version of everything, that like seeing everything through like a different lens, I thought was the best part of this movie.
Yeah, it was pretty wacky, I would say. And that surprised me, just the level of wackiness that was going on, because I kind of expected it to be more like Booksmart, where it's like,
right.
I mean, even Booksmart has like the weird tripping scene, the claymation scene, but for the most part, Booksmart like lives in the normal world as we know it.
It's grounded, yeah,
right. Whereas this was just like an alternate reality, high school situation, and that's probably what kept it interesting for me. I was also pretty aware as I was watching it that I am really old and that the people that made this movie did not make it for 45-year-old white dudes, I would say. And I still found things to enjoy in it. Certainly I wasn't offended by any of it or anything like that, but I was just like, maybe the cavalierness to sexual assault was like maybe that's how people feel when they have grown up with it, and it's like it's just a part of life type of thing. Like that perspective is very different than like the way I hear those things talked about. But also I'm not a female in her early 20s who has lived in the digital age at all type of thing. So it's definitely not a perspective were I writing and making a movie I would ever dream of approaching that topic in that way. But in this movie, they just do, and it's fine type of thing. And that was kind of interesting. It was probably the most interesting thing about it to me was that a lot of their approach to situations that I've seen in movies that were made 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, had an interesting point of view that I hadn't necessarily considered anybody would ever depict it in that way type of thing. Even like the macho football player had a perspective on it that I think is an assumed perspective. If you think about it, even through the lens of 30 or 40 years ago, you just never saw movies go that far with it type of thing. And this movie definitely liked to go far with everything that it did. And that's what made it interesting to me. I also just love Rachel Sennott and Edebiri. Like they are having a moment for sure, at least in my viewing world, between the bear and Edebiri in that show, and then Rachel Sennott and Shiva Baby, and being the best part of Bodies.
Agree there. Yep.
They're just fun to watch on screen, and they seem like I mean, this movie has a blooper reel during the credits. You know what I mean? It was great.
Like, and didn't they write this movie?
Rachel Sennott wrote it with the director, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie where it's in that Judd Apatow production style, in the fact where I think there's a lot of improv going on. And they were just trying to take what was some of the best lines and throw them in the movie.
Yeah. I also really liked the music too. The music was fun. There were like a couple throwback tunes. Oh, we didn't talk about the music and the creator. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it was Hans Zimmer.
It was, no, I'm not talking about the score. Like they played like half of a Radiohead song in the middle of the movie.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It's like, where is this coming from?
Since we're going to circle back to the creator really quick, another movie pet peeve I have is in sci-fi movies, whenever they're always listening to like classic rock. And I just want a movie that takes place in the future to give me future music.
You consider Radiohead classic rock?
I'm pretty sure Radiohead's like on classic rock city. Radiohead was big like 20 years ago, James. I know they're still kind of relevant, but like classic rock radio is now creeped into the 90s.
Plus, this is 2060.
Yeah.
I guess it's classical. It's certainly classic rock for their time. I think Radiohead's on the edge, though, of classic rock, I would say.
Okay, but
just because 90s music is playing on classic rock does not mean it's classic rock.
Well, did they play the Radiohead in this? It wasn't straight Radiohead, right? They added like a little futuristic.
No, that's the song.
That's the song.
That's the song. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess that's a 23-year-old song or something like that. So anyway, I don't know. I want my sci-fi movies to at least try and give me like, oh, here's music that people actually listen to in this world.
Not to go back, but I think my problem with calling Radiohead classic rock is that
did James have balloons go across?
I did not do a single thing.
James, you just had balloons launch.
I literally have my hand right here and my other hand here. I haven't touched a single thing. One of you guys did that.
I don't know how to do that.
Nobody's gonna be able to see it because it was in Zoom and not on my video.
Oh, that was amazing.
I wish that.
Anyway, the point is,
why did you
rock
have balloons?
music hasn't changed in the last 20 years for there to be any difference between what's coming out today and what Radiohead was doing 20 years ago. That's my issue with being on classic rock stations. Anyway, the music here was like Charlie XCX. It was like young pop music,
right?
And I enjoyed that.
I think Charlie XCX, she was credited with the original score.
Oh, she actually wrote like score. There's definitely some songs of hers in there.
Yeah.
But
well, in the credits, I saw music by Charlie XCX and
okay.
another person. So I think she was doing some of the actual scoring as well as having her music in there. And right, there were some throwbacks like Total Eclipse of the Heart came up, which I thought was used well. So okay, now Zach's messing around with backgrounds. He's trying to
Try not to get distracted.
Take an organic moment and make it inorganic.
No, you're the one even talking about it. Just let it go.
The biggest surprise of this movie for me, though, because I kind of expected to enjoy the movie in general. I expected that Rachel Sennott and Ayo Edebiri would be fun. But I never would have guessed Marshawn Lynch would make me laugh as much as he did in this movie. Like I didn't even realize he was in it until he was on screen. And then I was like, who is this guy? And then, I pulled up Wikipedia as I've been wont to do. And I was like, why is there a football player in this? But he was hilarious in this.
You didn't recognize Marshawn? Like, you haven't seen him in other things before? Like, not in other movies, but like other YouTube clips and things?
I'm sure I have, but I don't care about football.
Okay. Do yourself a favor and look up. Remember Conan O'Brien used to do something where he'd have people come play video games, like celebrities would come play video games, and he would just comment on them playing it.
Yes.
So there's one. I believe it's Marshawn Lynch and Rob Gronkowski are playing like Mortal Kombat together or something like that in front of Conan O'Brien.
Clueless Gamer.
Clueless Gamer, that's what it is.
According to YouTube, I've watched this, but it was 8 years ago.
Okay, watch the Marshawn Lynch Clueless Gamer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know of him. I'm sure I've seen him. I just don't live with Marshawn Lynch in my brain 24/7. So, but I thought he was really, really funny in this as kind of a straight man.
Yeah, he definitely I don't know, like he takes a comedic take after the girls betray him. We'll say.
Yeah. And I also really liked the finale.
At the football game?
Like how that all came together.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually like tied up little threads, and the pineapple juice of it all and that type of stuff was just so goofy and fun to watch. Them try to figure out how to put this all to bed. I enjoyed it.
I'll tell you the moment that got me on board this movie, and when I realized this is going to be kind of weird, but I'm going to like it. It's one of the first scenes that takes place in a classroom, and like Rachel Sennott and Ayo Edebiri walk into a classroom. I think this was after maybe a football player got hurt, and like the bell rings and everyone's talking about like, ooh, how this player got hurt and what happened. And the scene takes like 3 minutes, and then the bell rings again, and the teacher says, "All right, class, that's enough for today." And Rachel Sennett's like, "That's it."
Sure.
And that was the moment where like, oh, okay, I'm in on this movie. It doesn't even care.
One thing this movie does really well is it'll have throwaway jokes in the background.
Sure.
That you'll see for like 3 seconds, and it has the restraint to not then show a close-up of it like 4 shots later. You know, like many comedies, like they don't want to waste a joke, and so you'll notice it, and then like 30 seconds later there'll be a close-up of it to make sure you saw it. And this movie has a ton of things written on the walls and people in the background doing something silly, and you could really just enjoy yourself watching the background of a lot of these scenes. But it does not telegraph any of those things throughout the whole movie, and I thought that showed a lot of restraint.
I also liked how they didn't necessarily ease you into the fact that this is going to be a heightened reality, but like that scene with the car and the football player standing in front of the car happens pretty early, and you're like, what? Why is everybody treating this like a serious injury? You know what I mean? And that builds into, oh, well, it's because everybody idolizes football players, and specifically this one guy. And then later on, you realize like every time you see him with the crutches, it's like, why is he still milking the crutches thing? And then like maybe 20 minutes into the movie, they show him cheering in the background and like throwing his crutches to the side, and everybody loves him for not needing the crutches anymore. And it's like, it's kind of like a built ridiculousness that they have multiple jokes that ran throughout the movie that I liked how they It was wacky from frame one, but I think they strategically amped it up over time.
For sure. Yeah.
Or built on jokes. Yeah. There were like Mean Girls in there. There's all kinds of influences, I would say, throughout it, but none of them felt like it was leaning hard on those things. Maybe that's the difference between like Creator and this movie. There's lots of differences, but one of the differences is like I felt the Blade Runner-ness of the Creator.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to remove the Blade Runner-ness, it would not be the same movie. Whereas with this one, I think you could pull an inspiration out of it and it would still be itself at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they're both movies that try to create a world that's familiar to all of us and still try to make it unique. I'm trying to think of what else would relate them to each other. You know, the whole AI business. That's similar in both movies.
Oh yeah, when they revealed that Edebiri was actually a robot at the end.
Right. Yeah.
That was wow.
That was wild.
No idea. Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
I watched this movie with Megan.
Okay.
What do you guys think she thought of it?
I bet she liked it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think she liked it. But yes, I think she liked it.
She did not.
Okay, why?
I
She
think
say why?
it was a little too heightened for her.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think maybe a little on the dark side.
Did she not like it enough that at 45 minutes she was like, "Are you going to turn it off or me?"
Oh no. like she never during the entire movie she never like complained or was like acting bored or anything. But I could just tell like she wasn't laughing at jokes. I could just tell by her body language like I don't think you're enjoying this. But I didn't want to say anything to like, take her out of it. We got to the end and she's like, "I don't think I liked that." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Oh, it's a little weird, a little dark." And then her next question was, "Did A24 make this?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Well, they could have."
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it would have been their best comedy, I would say, if they had made it.
Right. It definitely has A24 feels to it.
Yeah. There's really not many good A24 comedies that I can think of. Like we watched that Pizza Slice movie. Remember that?
So
Zach?
bad.
That was a comedy. I'm trying to think of any others. I know they have a couple of them, but I can't. There's not too many of them, and the ones they have are not great, I would say.
I would say Swiss Army Man has comedic moments.
Sure.
But it's not a
Yeah.
straightforward comedy.
Same with didn't they also do Everything Everywhere?
Yes, that also has comedic moments. But
I would say that's a comedy. First.
Is Lady Bird a comedy?
What? Lady Bird?
Is Lady Bird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drama comedy.
Is that
comedy,
A24?
drama. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe
There's a
Lady
couple
Bird
good
is
ones.
there. Yeah.
But there's also some bad ones mixed in there, I would say. All right. Anything else with this movie, with Bottoms, that we need to talk about? I would recommend, just because I finished season 2, if you're not watching The Bear yet, go watch The Bear.
I am
show's
all
so
in on
good.
that show. And I like that season 2 is not just like hey, season 1 worked really well, let's do that again. It's an actual
Right.
like moving forward of the story and the characters
Mhm.
while still able to capture the same magic and still wanting to be around these characters, even though they are growing and changing.
Yeah. That episode where the brother goes to like the 3-star restaurant and he learns for a week. is
Oh, yeah.
so good. That episode is so good.
I wear suits now. Like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
funny and interesting. And when they're doing like the staff meeting and they're talking about the people that are coming to visit them, I got chills during that. It's probably the best TV writing I've seen in a long time.
Yep.
But Ayo Edebiri is a big part of that show, and she's great in it and not really being funny in that show at all. She's being serious for most of it. All right. Anything else with Bottoms? Are we ready to letterbox it? 5 stars. What are you guys going to give it?
I give it 4 stars.
I will also give it 4 stars.
I'm also a 4. 4 stars all around for Bottoms. Thank you for joining us for this episode 602 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, you can always send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com with a comment, question, list suggestion, movie suggestion, those kinds of things. You should also follow us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
Next week, we will be watching the film Flora and Son, which is by director John Carney, a.k.a. the Sing Street director. Also directed Once, which is Zach's top 10 movie?
That's like number
That's my
3?
fourth favorite film of all
4.
time.
Okay.
Fourth favorite film of all time. So would you say this is a highly anticipated movie for you?
No. I'm excited for it, but I don't think I'll like it as much as Once or Sing Street.
You don't think you'll like it more than your number 4 favorite movie of all time?
Exactly.
So I don't think so. You will either.
Exactly. So I'm going in thinking this will be my third favorite John Carney film, which is, how excited can you be about that?
But what if you did like it better than Once?
That'd be fantastic.
I think it could get there. I'm not trying to build it up or create an unnatural expectation, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be your favorite movie ever, Zach.
Okay. Well,
and if it's
I don't
not
think
that,
you're doing,
it's a failure.
You're not doing a great job of creating that anticipation in me, if that's the goal, but keep trying.
Zach, I've seen this movie already, and it is possibly the greatest film ever made
by John Carney.
Ever. Movies can stop now.
I'm amazed you could tell that after just 45 minutes.
I didn't need any more than that.
Yeah. You're like, I'm loving this, and you turn it off.
I'm loving this. Cinema's over.
It could only go downhill from here.
All right. So meet us again next week for that. We'll see you there. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.